And welcome back to RealAG Radio here on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Hey, delivering reliable agricultural lab testing for your crops, soil, feed, water, and seed. SGS is uniquely positioned, ready to elevate your business in Canada and the United States. Call them now at 1 800 952 5407. That's 1 800 952 5407. SGS. Okay, now we're going to talk about farm succession and cover it with a new guest here on the show. Today, we're joined by the founder of 337 is Derryn Shrosbree. Derryn, how are you doing today?
Great, thanks. How are you, Shaun?
Good. So, hey, before we get started here and talk about this really, really important issue, what is 337?
337 is a boutique that specializes in continuity planning for farmers. That's all we do. We do one thing and we do it really, really well. So we try to help farmers do succession planning correctly. I am a farmer, so I farm in just north of Mount Forest in southwestern Ontario. So market garden, we do vegetables, we farm. So I am a farmer that went through the succession process in Canada, found it excruciatingly painful, and did it for myself. So I put the whole thing together, soup to nuts. I found that there were 7 large buckets that sort of step one led to step two, led to step three, pretty similar to agriculture. Anyone can put a seed in the ground, but if you do 6 steps and then put the seed in the ground, the seed kind of generally grows a little better. So I did it for myself, and then my neighbor asked me how I did it, so I did it for him. And then the neighbor on the other section, they asked me, so I did it for them, and so on and so forth. And now, Shaun, what I try and do is I just tell folks what I did and how I did it, and then you just do whatever you want. But that's how I did it, and it worked out really well for myself and a whole bunch of my friends and farmers that we started with in Ontario, and then we moved into the prairies. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And I know lots of people have used your service and talked to you. Now, I'm curious. A lot of times we talk about farm succession, farm transition. Not a lot of people phrase it as continuity. Like, so why that word and what does that mean?
Yeah. So for me, I believe that I'm a steward of time. Yes, I look after the farm and my crops and my family, etc., etc. But as a steward of time, I have a block of time. If I want my work, my purpose, my farm, my family, etc., to continue and to do well, I need to have continuity planning, which means that all the good decisions that I've made and all the hard work that I've put in over 17 years on the farm is continuous. So continuity planning means that my legacy, or what I try to set up as my legacy, is continuous. So having a continuous plan for me makes a lot of sense because I don't want to do transition because I'm not transitioning out of the farm. I'm 48 years old. I'm still on the farm,
Yeah.
but I have on farm and off farm kids. So 3 kids. My eldest is on farm. My youngest 2 are off farm. So I'm still continuing on the farm. So it's continuity planning. So I don't feel like I'm being replaced. I don't feel like I'm useless. I'm still useful on the farm. So having the continuity of the farm is why we use that word. Does that answer your question, Shaun?
Yeah, no, I think it does. And the other thing that when you and I met at the Convergence conference,
Mhm.
one of the things that we had chatted about was the time. You said like a student of time for a lot of farms and ranches across Canada and the United States. This whole process it takes a really long time, and some of that involves lawyers and accounts, probably a lot of stalling depending on what people's interests are from a stakeholder perspective. It doesn't have to take sometimes the time that I think it does. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. When generally thus far, so when I went through the process, it was lots of lawyers, there was lots of accountants, there was insurance agents, there was financing folks, and every single person, there was probably like 8 people, and everyone had an opinion, and everyone told you to do this and that, etc., etc. And what I found was I would go to the accountant, educate him, he would send me an invoice. Then I would go to the lawyer, educate him, he would send me an invoice. Then the lawyer would educate the accountant, they would then get educated, and then they would both send me an invoice, and so on and so forth. So I found that the time started to drag out. It became complicated. I got lost in the details, and I didn't have a quarterback, like one person who's like, all right, we're going to do a one-stop shop here. Everything is going to get done. One step goes to two, goes to three, goes to four, goes to five. So I have two, I lacked 2 words, clarity and control. I had no idea what was going on, which then resulted in me procrastinating because I had no clarity. And when I had no clarity, I felt I wasn't in control. And as a farmer myself, and a lot of farmers we know, like control, right? We like to control things as best as we can. The weather's out of our control. But generally speaking, as a farmer, we control the inputs, which results in a crop or a harvest or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So I think that, to your point, the extension and the lack of people getting continuity plans done, and there's only 12, like at Convergence, I think it was you that said there's only 12% of farmers have continuity plans in Canada, which is terribly low. And I think that that's the reason. The reason is it's actually not complicated. It's fairly simple and fairly quick if you have someone who's done it or knows what they're doing to just give you a helping hand, like like the quarterback. If you played football without a quarterback, it
Yeah.
becomes a mess really quickly. If you have a quarterback, someone's doing the play, it kind of helps.
And the lack of clarity you're speaking about, I think, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I'm hearing there is like, I know where I want to get to. I know what it looks like on the other side, but the lack of clarity is the steps that we're taking to get to that point as quickly and most importantly in this process, most cost effectively
Yeah,
as possible. Because that's a big deal here too.
for sure. And I got invoice fatigue because I just kept getting invoiced and I wasn't feeling like I was getting anywhere. So if you can eliminate A, complexity, and B, the invoicing, and you're not on the billable hour, things go quite quickly because it's in everyone's best interest to get you back into the field, but we get the continuity planning done fast. So, for example, the steps I went through was one, let's get the enterprise value squared away. Like, how much are you worth? So that gets you a number. So the number is, let's say, $100 million on a big farm, $10 million, whatever the case may be. There's your number. In that number, there's two different kinds of assets. One is taxable, one is tax exempt. What are those two numbers? That's a pretty simple exercise. That takes some documentation. I read it. I'm like, if you have a $100 million farm, $60 million is tax exempt, $40 million is taxable. Okay, great. So then you work with the 40 million. There's your 40 million. That's your problem. Once you've isolated what the taxable problem is, 40 million, then the next step is, all right, who's going to pay it? Are you paying it? Are your kids paying it? Someone has to pay the bill. So choose. If you want to pay it, great. Do you want to pay it today or do you want to pay it the day you die? Which one do you want? Choose that. If you choose the day you die, then you do a thing called an estate freeze. Then you freeze the value of the farm today, so it crystallizes the value of $40 million, right? Your tax bill is 25% of 40 million. It's pretty simple, right? So can you pay that today? No. Well, then it's paid when you die. So that's two. That's called a estate freeze, right?
Mm-hmm.
So accountants and lawyers love to use jargon and make things complicated. It's not. Get the value of what you got, freeze the value of what you got, and then third, I like to call it who's in the tent with you. Like who's with you? That's like who when the s'mores and the marshmallows go around the fire, who's with you, right?
Yeah.
Those are the folks that are either going to inherit a liability or a legacy. Which one? Right? I presume you want to leave a legacy. Right? So then let's get someone to pay the liability. That's step three. Step three is called a family trust. Right? Family trust is who's in the tent. That's step three. Step four is when you do eventually die, who gets your stuff? Who gets your stuff? That's called a will. It's pretty simple, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you use simple words with folks and be like, hey guys, when you die, who gets your stuff? Who gets the black Fendt combine? It's gonna be Joey over there gets the Fendt. No one wants John Deere, by the way. They just give that shit away for free. No, I'm joking. I'm a Fendt guy. That means that everyone on this podcast in the prairie is just going to leave.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
if you're in
Careful.
Ontario, there's a couple of
You're
folks like
there.
Fendt.
There's some big tribes there. Be careful there.
Huge. No, I'm just kidding, guys. I do love John Deere. So anyway, so step three is family trust, right? Who's in the tent? Step four is when you die, who gets what? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Step five is who's going to pay the bill? Like I said, you're going to pay the bill, your kid's going to pay the bill, or do we want to find a third party that pays the bill? Right? The third party is structuring. So we can structure out of tax. We have to add a little bit of complexity to the mix. But if you don't want to pay tax in April on personal income or tax down the line, we can structure around that. That's step five, right? Also, the last step is, when the older generation, which would be me on my farm, what do we deserve? When we actually do leave, how do we get paid? What do we walk away with? Some folks are like, I just want to go to Arizona. Give me 100 grand a year for the day I die, and I'm good to go. All right, sweet. Let's structure that now so that we're clear about who gets what when, right? And then the age-old concern is on-farm versus off-farm kids. How do we estate equalize? A farm is not a pie. Can't cut it up. Doesn't make sense, right? And always, Elaine Fraze was at the Convergence meeting, and she said something really good. Fair is not equal, and equal is not fair. You can't cut it up. So the on-farm kids, they get the acreage, they get the farm. The off-farm kids, got to give them cash, right? How do we get cash to the off-farm kids so that the on-farm and off-farm, when the referees are gone, they still have supper together on the 25th of December? Because if you don't plan and do continuity planning correctly, you're going to leave a big mismatch between the kids.
A mess.
And yes, a mess. More often than not, it is a mess. And the thing is, it's avoidable. It's completely avoidable, right? It's really not that complicated. I think that up until this point, people have prided themselves in being like, oh, I'm too busy procrastinating. It's difficult. It's expensive. It's not. It's just not, right? You can cut through the red tape. You can cut through the nonsense. Get to the heart of the matter, is what you said, right? Let's get the solution in place so that you can get back to the field. Your shoulders are down 2 inches, and you're concentrating on your tram lines as opposed to thinking about who gets what when you die.
Yeah, well put. Well, hey, Derryn, I'm looking forward to chatting with you more here on RealAG Radio in the future about all these different incremental pieces. Thanks a lot for joining us here today. Really appreciate it.
It's my absolute pleasure. Have a great day. Thanks for including me.
That was Derryn Shrosbree. He is the founder of 33/7. Looking forward to more chats with him into the future about transitional continuity. Okay, before we take a break, I do want to mention New Farm. Get ahead of hard-to-kill weeds with pre-emergent soil-active herbicides Valterra EZ and Fierce EZ from New Farm. Apply after spring thaw for up to 8 weeks of extended weed control this spring. Find out more by going to newfarm.ca. We'll be right back on RealAG Radio, Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM, right after this.